Joining me from Barnabas Aid, Richard Drury. Richard, kia ora, thanks for your time.
Yeah, morning, Andrew, and morning to your viewers and listeners.
Today, focusing in on, we've talked previously about refugees, but today the focus on internally displaced people. This is a growing problem around the world.
Massive problem. And for those who are familiar with biblical literature, not a new problem. The ancient Assyrians of the 9th and 8th century, it was their practice and policy to people move, to disorient. They're a very cruel nation. And that's deliberate. A particular promise that's used by Christians, a letter to the exiles in Jeremiah 29, I know the plans I have for you.
Yeah.
Often we forget the context of that. It's a letter to a group of exiles in a different country. And the well-known Psalm 137 of Babylonian fame, seeking to be faithful to God in a strange land.
Yeah.
And of course, the apostles did teach that we are strangers and pilgrims. And so it's part and parcel of experience, but it's particularly bad for that reality that's happening around the world on a grand scale.
Now, some people might look at this and go, well, maybe in some circumstances this is a good thing. If you are a Christian who is persecuted for their faith in the country that you're from, being able to go to a country where there is more freedom, you can understand this may be a motivator for people to up stakes and leave, to look for more freedom to practice their faith. But often these people don't get a lot of choice.
They don't, and often the problem is IDPs, internally displaced people. So, for example, in Myanmar at the moment, there are 2.6 million people on the hoof trying to eke out a living, being forced out of their country since the coup in 2021. Or another very stark example of Sudan. These countries don't often make the news. 150,000 dead. 9 million internally displaced people.
Wow.
And 3.5 million fled from the country. So, yes, it won't make the news, but it's something we need to consider. And I'd like to say that in amongst all this great difficulty and massive statistics, there are some little rays of hope, I think, that are happening around the world.
Oh, well, hey, you definitely bring us the hope, but just wanting to spend a little bit more time on the internally displaced peoples. What are some of the challenges that are specific to that as opposed to, I don't know, a refugee population? What are some of the specific challenges that internally displaced peoples are facing, Richard?
Okay, we'll get to that in a bit more detail, but I can say, generally speaking, they're in the sphere of conflict and violence on their doorstep. Or let's say, for example, the end of 23, there are 68.3 million who are in a context of that conflict and violence, and others, let's say, natural disasters, so-called, 7.7 million of them. So their livelihoods, their ways of earning a living, their very lives are at stake often. And to be in that sort of conflicting situation goes right to the core of what it means to be a human being.
And I imagine for those internally displaced, particularly you mentioned Myanmar as an example, persecuted by their own government in this regard. Internally displaced means there is no place to go for safety, for freedom, that they are trapped within their nation, but not allowed to have the means of caring for their families and being able to make a living.
Exactly right, and that is the major problem. So you're disorientated in your own country and moved around, and what were sort of focal points of putting your roots down are uplifted, and you're totally disorientated with not knowing what's going to happen in the future.
You did give us a glimpse of hope beforehand. And look, I know the work that you guys do at Barnabas Aid, some really, really tough situations impacting the lives of so many people. But you guys also bring the hope. You also bring the good news. You bring some answered prayer in some of the toughest situations. What hope do you see, Richard?
Well, I'd like to paint a very quick scenario for you, Andrew. I won't mention the country, but I imagine people will be able to guess what it is. Feel a little bit like Jaggers in Great Expectations, but let's put the case that you're in the middle of a war zone and you receive an announcement that you must immediately head north of wherever you are, save your lives and evacuate your homes at once. Mm-hmm. You have 15 minutes to do, knowing full well with family difficulties, you need 2 hours to get to safety. Yeah. Now, through our agents on the ground, they are faced with a situation of what do they do? Well, what we tell stories about very recently are of moving at least 400 families initially, 140 kilometers away, meeting through our donors and generosity their needs of food, water, mattresses. All you have is a few dilapidated buildings, let's call them schools, that are neglected by the state, and a nearby monastery. But you're able to provide over that period of time a kitchen. You're able to address their food security and livelihood needs, their healthcare, their education. And that number will grow over a period of 6 months to 800 families. Wow. Just to finish, let's say that in the middle of these hostilities, there's a cessation of that violence. Mm-hmm. And you return, or you're able to return possibly, to what you have forsaken, which would be now your land, which is poisoned through phosphorus materials there. Yep. You're not allowed to move, and the institutions and infrastructure is all down. But through our agencies and the generous donations of donors, 836 families have been looked after for a period of over 6 months. Wow. They've returned to their lands and they're now gaining support. So that's food, that's water, that's bedding, that's education, even being able to celebrate a birthday or two. Wow. And give education to the kids. So that's the kind of ray of hope in an absolutely devastating context.
Hey, that is fantastic to hear that. And hey, as you've mentioned, this is made possible by the prayerful and financial support of people to Barnabas Aid. Wonderful to be able to bring these good news stories from the front lines. Yes, offering hope to people as they're displaced, but also giving them the hope of perhaps being able to return to the parts of their country that they were from originally. Richard, thank you so much for the work that you do at Barnabas Aid. Of course, people can find out more at barnabasaid.org. Thanks so much for being on the program today.
My privilege, Andrew. Have a good morning, everyone.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.